what I hope to do today is, from the 30,000 foot level, give you an idea of what this program is, how simple this program is. It does not compete or in any way preclude your operating contests or whatever you do. If you county hunt, whatever, it does not matter. You can do this program in parallel with zero incremental effort and have a ball doing it. And I hope to explain that to you today. Okay. Let me just give you a little background. I'll make it very, very brief. This year, I've been in this wonderful hobby for 63 years. I became a ham radio operator at 12 years old, so you can figure out how old I am. My dad and I built a CW crystal control 75 watt transmitter right out of the handbook. That was my first transmitter. I operated CW for probably 4 or 5 years. We found at a local ham fest in Peoria, Illinois, a RME 4300 receiver, and we strung a wire out back and I was on the air. And since that time, for 63 years, I've been blessed with a lot of things in life. I'm a musician. I've flown airplanes for about 50 years. I rode my BMW motorcycle up here from Florida. I've got 4 BMW motorcycles. I've made 8 trips to the Alps in Europe. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've sailed sailboats. But I can say without question, a lot of those hobbies have come and gone. My ham radio hobby has never left me for 63 years. I've pretty much been active all the way from the time I first became a novice all the way through today. I retired 5 years ago. I graduated as an electrical engineer from Bradley University, followed by an MBA. I was an EVP for a large company that had responsibility for power generation equipment in the US and Canada. And as I said, I retired 5 years ago, and I've really incrementally increased my focus and activity in this wonderful hobby that we all call ham radio. So what is the DX Marathon program? Before I get into some of the details, I can say without question, it's the fastest growing DX program in the world today. Why do I say that? Because year over year, between 21 and 22, we grew at 46%. And last year, 2023, we grew at 50%. Now, when I say grow, we had 46% and 50% more participants than we did the previous year. And similarly, the number of queues that those participants generated grew proportionately. There's no other program in a hobby that has relatively 2.75 million around the world and 750,000 in the US that can claim that kind of growth. Now, why is it growing at that rate? Well, I'm not exactly sure. I did 70 Zoom meetings to clubs last year. We have tried to spread the word in all possible ways. I've done podcasts, and Cycle 25 doesn't hurt, okay? There's a lot of people on the air. My only explanation for why it's not growing faster is, for whatever reason, it's not visible, and that's why I'm here. I was at W4 DXCC at Pigeon Forge. I was at W9 DXCC up in Schaumburg, Illinois. I'm doing everything I can in my retirement to spread the good news, if you will, about the program, because most people that sign up for the program just love it to death. It's a lot of fun, and I hope to demonstrate that, at least give you a framework of that today. Okay, I'm a history buff. I'm going to give you a 2-minute, 3-minute history. Even though the program is not maybe so well known among our community, it has been around for a long time. in and out. Originally, it was introduced to our hobby by CQ Magazine's predecessor, which was called Radio Magazine, back in 1939. They introduced the program, and then along came World War II, and they shut it down. And they shut it down for 8 years until 1948, the year I was born. And they instituted it again, but concurrently, the DXCC, CQ Worldwide came out. There was just too much out there, so it just kind of died. So it stayed dormant until 2005, when this gentleman here, Bob Loker, some of you may not recognize his name, W9KNI. He was from Chicago. He now lives in the state of Washington. He approached CQ Magazine and said, hey, I'd like to reconstitute the DX Marathon program. And they said, Bob, have at it. So Bob spent some time, put the rules in place, went back to them, and they said, let's do it. So Bob is a very sharp guy. He also today is on my board of directors and a very active participant. He was no dummy. He knew that this was going to take a lot of time to administer, so he recruited young John Sweeney, K9EL, also in the Chicago, Schaumburg area, and John took over the program in 2005. That's when it came back into existence, and John literally administered the program for 17 consecutive years. And I knew John through a mutual friend of mine down in Jupiter, Florida, where I live, and we went to Visalia, we went to Dayton, and I got to know John, and lo and behold, about 2 years ago, I received through the reflector that John was retiring. So I picked up the phone and called him. I said, John, what are you doing? He says, Mark, I'm burnt out. And I said, wow. I said, John, I just retired. Tell me about the program. I would like to give back something to this hobby for all the years that I've enjoyed it. So I spent about 10 minutes on the phone with him, and I said, oh my God, John, hold on. I can't do this. I just retired. I'm trying to build serenity into my life. This is a full-time job. So I got to thinking, we ended the phone call. I got to thinking about it, and in my professional experience, I built a number of companies, and I know you build companies and you do things through companies, through people. So I said, John, what do you think of the idea of going out and recruiting some volunteers and dividing up all the workload that you did, all your tasks and responsibilities, among 4 or 5 people? And he said, yeah, I think that could be done. So I said, John, help me write job descriptions of those key tasks that you do, and then let's go out and recruit. Make a long story short, that's exactly what I did. And I said, I'm taking it over. So I've actually formed a board of directors. I formalized this program. We also today are an LLC, and I'm in the process of getting 501c3 qualifications so that people like yourself and many of our contributors can contribute to the program and achieve tax deductions. But I've got a chair, and we identified very experienced participants in the program, and they're my board of directors. And I'm no dummy either. I kept Bob Loker and John Sweeney on as board emeritus members, and I consult with them a lot. Okay, then what I did, 2/3 of our program is international, about 1/3 is domestic, US and Canada. So I knew that I had to have a sounding board as we evolved the program for international people. So I recruited pretty much from every continent participants, active participants, to use as my sounding board as we evolved the program. This is the heart and soul that runs the program. It's called my operating managers. I am very involved in it myself, but I've got a scoring manager, I've got an IT manager, Sebastian, who is at Dayton this week, who's absolutely an amazing gentleman. I've got a communications manager, and I got a rules and compliance manager. And I'm still looking for a data, and now I had a guy there, but he had some personal issues, and he had to walk off. But anyway, this is the operating group. We are now positioned to grow this program exponentially. What one man was doing, I now have 5 people doing, and we're very, very positioned to do that. Okay, what is the DX Marathon program? You're going to hear me say simple, simple, simple. I'll say that many times today. It is an annual program. It starts on January 1st and it ends on December 31st. And between those dates, you just go out and work as many DX entities as you possibly can. And I'll explain that in a minute. You log them, and at the end of the year, your log generates an ADIF file, you upload it to our web page, and then we score it for you. And then depending on what class you enter in, which I will explain also, or what mode you enter in, all modes or single mode or whatever, we then do a tabulation and we compare you against like operators throughout the world. This is not a contest, it's a program. Now, contests, as you know, I was a big contester. I'm very competitive. I kind of burn out though. When I retired, I decided, again, I wanted serenity into my life. And serenity, I don't necessarily see as sitting at a station on a seat for 48 consecutive hours or 24 or 36. That doesn't build serenity into my life, and it doesn't give me much balance either. I got grandkids and I got a wife of 49 years, so I try to get balance into my life. I still like to do that occasionally, but participation in this program, you can still do those contests, and everything you work in that contest will apply to this program. So my point was, this is a program, you can be competitive. We have a bunch of people that are competitive, but I once worked for a person that says, a brilliant guy, taught me a lot about business development. He says, Mark, if you can't measure something, it's not worth doing. All this program does for many, many of the participants is give you a self-evaluation on how you are doing in your DX pursuit. That's all it's doing. Before I took this position, I participated in the program for 7 years. I didn't need any plaques. I didn't need any certificates. I just wanted to know how I was doing. And I can tell you to this day, I participated in 2023. I have to pull myself out because I'm ahead of the program now. And my scoring manager, he can't participate either. But every single year I've been in the program, I have attained a higher score. That's self-evaluation, and that gives me an indication how much time I'm spending on the radio DXing, how I'm increasing my proficiency of chasing DX, how I have improved my equipment, my antenna systems, my station. It gives me a lot of feedback, and I enjoy that because I like to do as good as I can when I'm doing anything. I don't compete. I compete against myself. And I would say, I don't know the numbers, but I would say 3/4 of the people that participate in this program do that for that reason. That's all they care about. They don't care about beating somebody else. But if you do, you can do that, and it can be very competitive. It's an excellent excuse to get on the air. It's a little push, it's a little push. You can go on vacation for 3 weeks and not feel like you missed anything. You didn't miss a field day, you didn't miss a contest or whatever. You work it when you can. There's no sign-up fee, and there's no confirmations required. No QSL, no LOTW. It's an honesty program. We have some ways to keep the honest people honest, but I'll explain that in a minute. But basically, it's simple, simple, simple. Get on the air, work DX, log it, and turn in the file at the end of the year. That's it. That's it. Okay, let's move on. How does it work? I already said participation is easy. Okay, how is it scored? How is it scored? Everybody familiar with the DXCC entities? How many are there? 340. Those are all DXCC entities. To that, we add what we call the WAE entities, Work All Europe. There's 6 of those. So we have 346 distinct DXCC entities. And how many zones do we have in the world? 40. Each one of those that you work is worth 1 point. And all we do is take all your DXCC entities and all your zones, we add them together, and that's your score. No multipliers. You don't have to worry about multipliers, any of that complicated stuff that you get into contests. That's it, okay? And it's very simple. We just add them up. Okay. Everything, a zone counts 1 point, a country entity. Now, so if you add those two up, what's the maximum possible score you can get? 386. Has anybody attained 386? Absolutely not. Because within those DXCC entities, there are what? Activations. Bouvet, Crozet, right? They're not activated every year. That's included in that 346. So typically, and I'll show you a little bit, scores, really, really, really good scores. If you get 300, you're doing real good. Last year, the top score was 329. That is amazing. Okay? So that's how it's scored. I got to keep moving along because I'll go long here. Okay, why participate? I don't know, out of those 2.75 million that are ham radio operators throughout the world, but I would venture to say that half, maybe more, somehow enjoy DX. That's how they got into the hobby. That's how I got into the hobby at 12 years old. I was dating this little gal, and I went over to her house, and her dad worked at Caterpillar Tractor Company. He was a mechanical engineer. He said, "Mark, come downstairs." And he turned on his radios, and he started getting on the air, working Russia, working South America. It took me hook, line, and sinker. I knew at that time I had to do this. I had to do this. Not only that, I also determined shortly thereafter I wanted to do one thing in life, or in my college, I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I never swayed from that. Never even thought about it. So it had an impact on me. I know a lot of people in our hobby are DXing. So it enables you to monitor something that we all so love to do, okay? It challenges us every year. I got big numbers in DXCC, but, you know, once you achieve it, now what do I do? Am I going to work them again? The DX Marathon program, you reset the clock every year, and you start over. That's the beauty of it. And I had many, many very experienced operators who've got very high honor roll DXCC counts that say, "I love the marathon because I'm starting over every year. It's a new challenge." No multipliers, I mentioned that, getting on the air. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal tool for club leadership. I've given 70 Zoom presentations to clubs. The club presidents and leadership love it because it gives them a tool to engage and to attract members. And they even set up competition within their clubs. And at the end of the year, at the annual event or Christmas party, you know, they'll set up teams and then they'll make awards. So it's anything you can do in a club to engage the club is a powerful tool for leadership. There's some clubs that are really struggling today to get members. Others are just going bonkers. I see this, and you know, through my Zoom meetings, as I sat through the business meetings, and it's amazing how one club operates versus another, how one club is growing versus another. Okay, eligible frequencies. This is not a tough one. 6 meters through 160, including all the work bands. I love work bands. When you get into contests, you don't work bands. They're included in this. Okay. Contact through repeaters or satellites, not allowed, and any contacts made, basically it's HF communications. No repeaters, no DMR contacts, no Echolink. HF basically, and that's it. Okay, these next 2 slides, everybody sitting there in the audience, if you've got any reason to say this is not for me, after I'm finished, I want you to come up and tell me why. Because I think these next 2 slides are going to, you can slot yourself into these categories. What we try to do is create a level playing field among all the participants. So we have 4 classes: unlimited, limited, formula, and QRP. QRP you all know, I don't have to explain that. Unlimited is Katie bar the door. I have a remote station down in Florida. I got a 100-foot tower, I got a JK Nabasa, a JK 3040, I've got a quarter lake vertical, I got 160, I got everything. I got a SAR receive antenna, I run a linear, I got everything. That's unlimited, okay? Let's take a step down. Limited. Limited is 100-watt maximum. You can use Yagi antennas, okay, but we make some restrictions. I won't go through all these details, but there's a tranche there that you may or may not be in. Let's go down, and this next formula, and I've got a slide a little bit later I'm going to show you, and I'll explain why this next category last year grew 5x. We had 5x more participants in the formula. Why? 100 watts, long wire, or vertical. And I would profess in our wonderful hobby, that's where most of our operators are. They don't have those towers and HOAs that don't allow them. They don't have the Yagi, don't have the financial resources. They don't have linear operator. There is a huge number of all of us that are in that category. Long wire, vertical, and 100 watts. Okay, and I'll tell you what, right now with Cycle 25 and FT8, those people in that category can enjoy what I did for 63 years, DX. I've got people writing me emails that participate that have a townhouse in Annapolis that got a wire antenna in their attic, and they're achieving 125, 130, 150 points already this year. That does my heart good to know that these people that maybe didn't have everything I had are enjoying the wonderful world of DX. Okay, the next slide, keep that in mind. Every one of you slotted yourself in one of those. I'm pretty sure if you've got a license and you got a station and you're operating, you're in one of those categories. Now fold this slide on top of what I just showed you. What do you like to operate? For me, I like it all. I like all bands. I like all modes. I prefer CW. I'm a member of CW Ops. I started as a CW operator. I love CW. If that's all I could work, that's all I would work. But I also like sideband, and I also like FT8 and FT4 digital modes, okay? So I always enter in all modes and all bands. I want it all, okay? But I've got a good friend. He's 90 years old. Down in Jupiter, Florida, W4QN, Norm Alexander. Norm wouldn't touch FT8 with a 10-foot pole, okay? He loves CW. In 2019, he entered a contest in CW mode only. He won it, #1 in the world, 300, he's got a beautiful station. 309 points, CW, #1. So if you only like CW, enter CW. If you only like digital, enter digital. If you only like sideband, enter sideband. That's your choice. You make that choice. Now, if you get bored with the program, and one year, like K2TQC, Bill Gibbons up in Syracuse, New York, Bill likes to jump around. 2 years ago, he decided, I'm just going to work 15 meters. That's it. All modes, 15 meters. He won #1 in the world. And this year, he said, I'm just going to work 12 meters. We'll see what he does. So you can pick a band. We have people that do 6 meters only. We have people that do 160 only. We have people that do 60 meters only. Pick a band. That's another category that you may choose. And you don't have to do this from, you can do it from year to year. You can't change during the year. At the end of the year, you have to declare, okay? But you don't have to declare till the end of the year, okay? Again, I remind you, no sign-up required. You are all in the DX Marathon program for 2024 right now. If you've got a log and you've been working DX since January 1st, all those count. So at the end of the year, you generate your ADIF, you go to our website, load it up, and you are in the DX Marathon for 2024. Very simple. Okay. I'm going to skip this. The only thing I'd like to say is Sebastian has redesigned our webpage. I've got a card here. It's got a little marker on the back. You can scan it, but our website is www.dxmarathon.com. Okay, you notate that. It's got a lot more in it. Brand new website. I'll show you a picture here in a second. This is what the website looks like. It's got tabs. There's so much information in here. We keep tabs of broken calls. We keep tabs of pirates. K2CIB keeps track of pirates. You know, in Turkey, there's a European Turkey and an Asiatic Turkey. TA1 is European, TA2 through 9. We have a map showing that. How many calls are there in Antarctica? Any idea? There's about 100. We have a map of Antarctica. We keep track of the calls down there. This is a wealth of information, whether you're in the program or not. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I've said enough about that. Okay, he's also developed a tool. Many of your logging, I use DX Labs, and I'm also looking at Mike Carper's Ham Radio Deluxe, because I really like some features in it. So I may run a couple in parallel for a while. But some of your logging programs, if you go in, it'll allow you to generate an ADIF file or get a report geared to the marathon program. Dave, AA6YQ, does that. I can hit one button on the DX Keeper and get my status as to how many entities I've worked and how many CQ zones. It gives me a beautiful table so I can see what I need, okay? You can also do that with any logging program. Go to your logging program, generate an ADIF file, and this ham2k.com, you can go to this online website and import your ADIF, and it'll give you this beautiful printout. I did this before I came down here. I have 250 total points year to date. I have 210 entities. I've got all 40 zones worked so far. And this is a big, long table with 346 rows, and then the CQ zones are below that. Okay? So you can get a snapshot of everything you worked. Okay? He also tells you whether it's been confirmed, even though, again, you do not have to confirm in our program, but you are responsible for the integrity of the information that you submit in your log. We don't check it for accuracy. That's our participants. So if you've got a couple calls and you got one confirmed, you have the option here to select the one that's confirmed. If it's a rare one and you've worked a couple in that entity and one's not confirmed and one is LOTW, you're going to pick that one to submit because you got a lock on it. Okay? That's all your decision. We don't check for that. We don't check for confirmations. Okay. This is the submission form. This is hard to see. That little red box to the top left, that says load ADIF file. And that you take your ADIF file, you click on that, you point to where you downloaded it in your computer, up she goes, and you are finished. That's it. At the end of the year. The submission dates are between January 1st and January 5th. You've got to submit in that window because we have a lot of things that we then have to do afterwards. So it's a pretty tight window, but we seldom have problems. You can also, with the new submission tool that he developed, you can submit right now. In a month, you can submit again. Each subsequent submission will overwrite the previous one, so you will always have the current one on file. And they're not public because a lot of people say, well, why don't we make them public? Because we do have a lot of people that are very competitive and they don't want anybody else to know where they stand. So it's only available to you when you go in and check and when you log up. Okay? I'm going to just skip ahead here because okay, I'm just going to say one thing about verification. Our program is an honesty program. We don't require confirmations. We encourage everybody that works somebody, put it in your log. Check it later, but put it in your log and even submit it. The worst that can happen, if you got a broken call or we get a non-confirmation, you don't get thrown out of the program, you get a 1-point deduct. So if you are at 301 and we find one that's not confirmed or you typed a 0 in for an O, you go to 300. That's it. Now, that doesn't sound much to you, but I can tell you in any one of these categories, the top 10 or 15 people are separated by less than 10 points. So to them, it's big. It's big. To most people, in 7 years, I've never submitted a perfect score. I've been dinged. It's getting better. Last year I only had 2 mistakes, okay? But it's not uncommon. Out of roughly 2,000 participants, we only had 300 that had perfect submissions where we didn't find an error. By the way, QRZ makes lots of mistakes. The zone designation, the CQ zone designation in QRZ is done by the operator. Some operators, believe it or not, don't know what zone they're in. So if your database tracks from QRZ and it's the wrong zone, you got the wrong zone. And if you submit it into your zone, into that claim zone, and it's wrong, you get a deduct. I went through my log about a year ago, and I used DXKeeper, and it uses QRZ as the database for identification of prefixes and zones. I had a 1% error. I had, out of 35,000 queues, I had over 3,000 queues that had mistakes. How did I know it had mistakes? I used the AD1C country code database. Jim, out in Colorado, it's the best in the world, by the way. That's as told to me by K9EL, my predecessor. It's the best in the world. It found the mistakes. I went through my log and I corrected all 3,000 because I don't like a crappy log. I want it right. Okay, so beware of QRZ because it has about a 1% error. So double check that. Okay, the honor system, we have ways that we can go in. We don't do 100% checking of all your queues. We do spot checks. We do particularly close checks for people of the competitive type that are in the hunt, that are at the top, okay, because we've got to make sure we don't make a mistake on those. They get very upset if we make mistakes. So we scrub those a lot closer, but we do that. And the reason we do that, not because we have found people that intentionally cheat, but rare. Most of us in our hobby are very honest people. If we say we work somebody, we work somebody. So we want to protect those people that are honest. That's why we check. We know if we start having a proliferation of cheating or whatever, people will just say, they'll leave, they'll get frustrated, and we don't want to do that. That's the only reason we check. All right, DXpeditions, I get the ADIF files of many of the DXpeditions. I tell them who I am. I said, hey, would you mind sending me your logs? We dump them into our computer. If our participants say they work the station, we match. If they're not in the log, -1, okay? So we do a little bit of that. That's what we do from the end of January through about the 1st of March, because we had 350, last year we had 350,000 queues. We didn't check all of them, but we checked a lot of them. Okay, we believe in recognition. We have plaques of recognition. They're beautiful plaques, and we have certificates of merit that we send for many. The major cost in our program is the cost of those plaques. They're about $100 a piece, and we have wonderful sponsors. We have individuals, we have clubs like the Northern Illinois DX Association, CW Ops. They sponsor 3 plaques. High CW in the world, high CW in US, high CW in Europe. Beautiful plaques, $100 a piece, that pays for the plaque. Without our sponsors, we wouldn't have a program. Okay, so we're very grateful to them. The certificates are just, they're mailed like many other contests, so that really doesn't represent a big cost to us. We are indebted to our sponsors though. Okay. Just a little commercial here. Down at the bottom of our webpage, it's hard to see here, but if any of our participants wish to make a donation to help offset, we're volunteers in the program, and if we can't get volunteer money, we pull money. John did it for years. He pulls it out of his own pocket. You know, printing cartridges and papers, and now that I'm growing the program, we have other costs. These things here, okay? those come out of our pockets unless our participants can throw $5 in or $10 in. I mean, 2,000 participants. We don't charge for the program, but if 2,000 participants, threw in $10, that's $2,000, and we could use that as working capital. Trust me. So if you're so inclined, it's a PayPal contribution. Very, very simple. That's all I'll say about that. There's a way to contribute if you wish. All right. All right. Who needs sunspots? Our program doesn't need sunspots. Sunspots are it levels the playing field. If it's good, our scores are high. If it's not so good, they're not so high, but it doesn't affect the number of participants that we have because everybody has the same penalty. But I'll tell you right now, it is very, very good. I don't need to tell you guys that. This chart is a little bit dated, but cycle 25 has just been absolutely amazing, especially on 10, 12, 15, 17 meter. It's 50% of the 350,000 Qs are on 10, 12, and 15. That's all cycle 25, basically. So I tell a lot of people, if you're thinking about this program, get in it now. It's really good. It's really good. Okay, here's my bell-shaped curve. I referred to this earlier, so I won't spend much time. But I'm out in the 3 Sigma area on the edge. People that have the kind of mega stations that a few of us have are not that frequent. Most people are inside the bell-shaped curve, and that's really who I'm going after on this program. People that are running 100 watts that have a wire or a vertical. You can get into this program and have an absolute ball. Okay, I'm going to say just a few words about 2023 result. This may be really hard to see. 50% growth in participation. The high score was 329. In 2022 is 307. This one is mind-boggling. We had 99 entries that had scores above 300. In 2022, we had 13. That's cycle 25. Is that amazing? The overall error rate, not bad. It's 2.0 this year. It was 2.7. People are getting better at checking their logs. What are errors? Wrong zones, I mentioned that already. Invalid calls, pirates, wrong country entities, not in log. Only 6%. When we do log checking, we only find about 6%. One guy says, I worked the guy, and we check the guy on the other end. He says, he's not my log. So not many. 65% of our participants are in the unlimited class, the big class. Only 5% single band. I'm really trying to figure out a way to increase that number. That means you select 60, you select 20, whatever. And about 36% were in single mode. They declared, I'm doing it only for CW, or only for digital, or only for sideband. And clubs, I'll talk about this in a second, but club participation, as I have wanted it, is escalating rapidly, and I want that because it engages a lot of people. It's healthy for our hobby to engage people. Continents, this is almost impossible to see. I'll read it. The line on the top is North America. The second line and the second largest continent participation is South America. Brazil in particular, they're huge supporters. I don't know if any of you went to the contest dinner last night. PP5JR, Sergio, I spent the weekend with him here. He was inducted into the CQ Contest Hall of Fame last night. He is a huge participant in this, huge. And he has 3 children and a wife, and they're all ham radio operators. All of them are. Juliana, I introduced to Carol Perry. She gave a presentation to the youth teachers on Friday and to all the youth on Saturday. She's 14 years old, and she's an amazing young gal. She's very active ham radio operator. And then they go down from there. I won't boggle. And these are mainly statistics. QSO by bands, you can see. Single mode, I just mentioned. Clearly, the digital, like it or not, 76% of all the queues that we accepted out of the 350,000 were FT8. About 14% were CW and about 14% for sideband. I'm working real hard to pump up CW because I personally like CW. And I'm now in the CW ops. I just got in that, even though I've been a CW operator forever. Somebody nominated me to be a sponsor for me. And there's 3,500 CW ops operators in the organization worldwide. So I was with Dick last night, who writes the CW op newsletter, which is, by the way, one of the best club newsletters I've ever seen in my life. It's phenomenal. But I've written an article on that. I'm trying to engage many of those CW operators into the program because I want to see that 14% grow to 25% within the next couple of years. Okay, these are just a lot of data here. This is I referred to 99 participants scoring over 300. That's that big bar at the right-hand side of the screen. Okay, I'm going to conclude. I did change, I'm very conservative. I'm from the Midwest. If something is running really good, don't screw around with it, But on the other hand, I want to constantly improve the program to make it attractive to more hams because my vision is to grow this program. I want to double it again next year. I want to double it the next year. The numbers are there to do it. I just learned my IT manager, anybody involved in POTA? You know how many people, POTA just started. You know how many people are actively involved in POTA right now? 11,000. It's incredible. It was nothing just a few years ago. Okay? With all the DXers out there, we're looking at peanuts in my program right now. So I'm really trying to find a way to attract people. I do that through outward reach, but I also do that by examining the program as it is right now, the merit systems, the reward, and tweaking it around to make it more attractive to engage people to participate. So I've tried to modify the categories. I talked a little about that, to try to make them on an equal playing field so somebody doesn't feel, I'm disadvantaged in this category. So I want to feel like if somebody gets into it, they're playing on a level playing field. I am a huge proponent of youth. I spent half my time here in Dayton with youth. When I was in business, my business units, if I had a business unit that was doing this for a couple years, it made me very nervous because whether you're talking about a business, whether you're talking about a church, whether you're talking about a ham radio hobby, you do not stay at a plateau forever. There's two directions you're going to go. You're going to go this way or you're going to go this way. I want to see our hobby go this way, and the only way I can see that happening is feeding people in the front end of the hobby. Get youth involved. There are a lot of organizations that think like, and so I created a youth overlay 2 years ago, and I have a plaque, #1 youth in the world, 25 and under. This year, I'm issuing certificates for the #1 youth in every one of the continents, the 6 continents. So I'm doing whatever I can to increase, youth love this program, okay? YLs, okay? Same thing. My wife is an electrical engineer. She's a ham radio operator. Both of my kids are, but they're not active. My wife is not real active as well, but that's okay. There are a lot of YLs out there. I was talking to the YL group. They're going to put me on the website. I have an overlay for YLs, okay? That doesn't mean YLs can't participate on an equal basis on any of the other It's just that I want to do a special recognition. So I've got a sponsor for the #1 YL in the world, and I'm issuing certificates for the top YL in each continent as well to try to engage the YLs. Okay, club competition. If you got a club of 25, I belong to a very small club in South Florida. How am I going to compete against a Potomac Valley club that's got 300 members? because we take the way we score clubs is we take each individual participant, we just add them together. They refer to a club call, we aggregate it, and that's the club score. Well, how am I with 25 people? Again, I'm looking to try to create level playing field. So what I did for 2024 is I divided the club into 3 tranches. 75 and above, they'll have their own plaque and their own recognition. Between 25 and 75, they'll have one. And even the small clubs, 25 and below, they will have their own recognition, their own plaque, okay? So I'm really big on club. So in honor at both at W4 DXCC, which I was at, and W9 DXCC, John Sweeney, K9EL, 17 years, I created an award in his honor, okay? And the award is, I'm going to take the last 5 years of participants, and I'm going to add their scores together, and the person that has the highest score will get the John Sweeney Super Marathon Award, just in recognition. Okay, and lastly, this one is, you're all familiar with the DXCC challenge. This is similar, okay, and one of our big sponsors in South America gave me this idea. So this year, 2024, for the very first time, we will allow entry into 8 bands. In other words, 10 through 80. We will aggregate your points in each one of those bands, sum them up, and see what you got. The top person will get a plaque in the world, and then the runner-up will get a runner-up plaque. This will be interesting. It's a brand new thing. This falls in the area where I want to make it more attractive. So I'm finished. I'll entertain any questions, and I hope to see you this year in the DX Marathon program. Thank you. I didn't answer all your questions, did I? That's all right. What you can do, notate that website when you have some time. Just troll around it. There's a ton of information. And I've got 5 guys. I also have a reflector, Group IO reflector under DX Marathon. I've got about 500-600 of our members that are active in that. A lot of questions go up. They'll work a call. Is this a legitimate call? And somebody else will answer whether it's legitimate or not. So that's another resource that you have in the program. If you didn't pick up one of these little brochures, pick it up. It's kind of got a summation of the program on it. Feel free to get one of those. And any questions, or are y'all good?